Hey guys, here's my 1989 Honda NX 650, also known as the Dominator in Europe. This is my part 3 video of installing a SuttonCycleWorks.com oil cooler on the bike. What we're going to need in this video are the following items. So we've got the 6 hose clamps, the oil line, which if you recall in part 2, we cut it. We cleaned it out with some brake cleaner, blew it out with some air, just to make sure there's no other lingering metal particles down inside there. It's clean, there's no burrs, it's smooth, it's great. 2 other items we're going to need is the 16-inch black hose line and then the 13-inch black hose line. And you're going to need a small socket. This is a quarter, I believe this is a quarter socket. To tighten down these hose clamps, and just to be a little bit anal here is a ruler. So on page 8 of the instruction manual, it says to take the longer line and the 16-inch tube. So let me just set that over there, and oil these down. So I'm going to oil down the end. So I'm just going to stick it directly into some oil that I have on the side here. So we just stick that in there. So we've got a bunch of oil on there. And take my black tube, stick that in there also. Got a bunch of oil on there. And we are now going to slide it in. It does say it should go on approximately 1.25 inches over the black oil line. So let me see if I can feel that. Take my little ruler here. Don't want to be too anal. Well, that's about 1.5 inches. Let me just pull it back just a little bit. It's about right. We're going to take 2 black hose clamps, put them on there like so. Put another one on here. Flip it over. Okay, now we're going to take our socket. Now what I'm going to do is I'm only going to tighten this up a little bit because when I get it onto the bike, I want to be able to adjust this hose line just a little bit. Now it does say in the manual that there should be approximately 6 millimeters between this clamp and that clamp. 6 millimeters is about less than 1/4 inch. So I think that's about right. Looks good. I'm not going to tighten it up all the way right now. I want to be able to twist this a little bit, so when I do get it on the bike, I can move this around just in case I need a little extra flexibility. Next one we're going to do is we're going to do the shorter one. Exact same thing. Gonna dunk this directly into some oil. Put some oil on there. Do the same thing with the other side with the black line. And I'm gonna turn the page. And we're gonna do the exact same thing. So I'm just gonna slide this on here like so. Like that. Get it on there. Feels about a little slippery because of the oil. Feels about 1 inch. That's about right, about 1.25 inches. Do the same thing. Take 2 black hose clamps. Slide them on. Like so. And we're going to tighten these up just a little bit. Like I said, I want to have a little bit of play on these lines so that when I do get it on the bike, I'm going to move them around a little bit. Just a little bit of play. Okay. Now, one thing that I want to point out, and I forgot what I was going to say, but so we got the short one done, and we've got the long one done. and then we have 2 extra hose clamps. Those 2 extra hose clamps are going to go onto the oil cooler itself. So at this point, I'm going to now install these lines directly onto the bike. If you recall, this was a 19 millimeter. It's going to use a 19 millimeter wrench, and this was a 22 at the bottom. So I'm going to pause here for a moment, put these onto the bike, and then we will come back and we'll do the next step. Thanks. All right, so moving on here, we have installed the lower and upper oil lines on the bike. So let me show you. I apologize, I'm going to use one hand here, and it's a little dark outside because it's been pouring. So I'm going to use my lamp, and I also have a flashlight to show you guys what I had done here. So let me put that down. Let me turn on my flashlight so you can actually see it. I think this one you could probably see pretty well. So here is the bottom line, right here. You can actually see it. It comes up, and right there you can see the line and the 2 clamps, the black isolator, which is on there. And I also put a twist tie on there. So this line will not move. Per the instruction manual, you need to tighten this down to the specs, which is 40 Nm. Unfortunately, I don't have a tool that could actually do that, so I just used my wrenches, the 19 millimeter on the top, and then the 22 on the bottom. Got that reinstalled, tightened it down. Now, I did mention to leave this line, this black line, the clamps themselves, just a little bit loose. It was so much easier when it was a little loose, and it had the flexibility of moving it around. Now, let me come on the other side of the bike, and I'll show you where it gets installed. I want to show you real quickly how it's routed. It's routed through right there, up and over. And we're going to come on this side. This is a little challenging, guys. I apologize for doing this with one hand here. Here is the line, this line right here I'm showing you with my flashlight that comes down. I left it the standard length before I cut it. I used this particular tool right here, which is just a standard pipe cutting tool. It's a plumber's tool. Cut the line off. I cut off about 3 inches. That line gets installed on the outside connector, which is right there. I'm going to tighten up that clamp in a few minutes. Now, what's important about this line, per the instruction manual, you do not want it to bend too far, because if you bend it too far, I had to play with this a little bit. If you bend it too far, the oil will not flow through that line properly. So that's number one. The shorter, the other line, which is a little difficult to see, but I'm going to come around this side with my flashlight. Now, as I mentioned, I left these, I didn't tighten them down because I wanted to have a little bit of flexibility. So the smaller line, which is this guy right there, I installed it, ran it down, and you can actually see the 2 clamps right there. Leave it a little bit loose. Now, when you originally took this line off, it was actually straight. The line came straight through. In the instruction manual, it appears as though this line runs underneath the frame. So you can actually see it actually runs underneath the frame. And then I attached my 2 clamps and tightened it down. That line comes through, comes around the other side. And on this line also, I cut off approximately, you can actually see it right there, coming down right here, come all the way down. I had to cut off approximately 3.5 inches on this one. So let me go ahead and I'm going to put this one on there. And what I will do is I'll get my clamp, one of the black clamps, and I'll put it on and tighten it down. Now, recommendation on all these clamps, go back around and then tighten them up so they're quite tight, so they don't move. And that is the line. It'll be attached, and I'll have another clamp down here. One other piece of advice is your spark plug line, which is that guy right there. My recommendation is you're gonna have to play with it a little bit. It took me about, honestly, anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour to get all of these lines properly installed. And it appears as though everything looks good right now. I'm real happy with how it all got inserted. The next step after this, let me just take a step back here and pull my light back, is now I get to have all the fun of reinstalling everything. I'm going to make one last video, and this one last video is going to be about reinstalling everything onto the bike. So let me just provide a real quick recap on what's next. I'm going to put back on the gas tank. I'm going to put on the seat. I'm going to put the plastic back on. I'm going to, while I've got it, and I've already drained the oil from part 1 video, is I'm going to remove the oil filter and put a new oil filter in there. I'm going to fill it back up with oil. And what Mark recommends in the instruction manual is to fill up the oil, turn the bike on, let it run for a few minutes, turn it off, and then check the oil level, because we want to make sure that the oil is getting down into the oil filter. He does say in the instruction manual to rock the bike back and forth a few times. After I get that done, I'm going to run it probably, I don't know, maybe a couple 100 yards down the street, bring it back, and double check everything. I'm talking about every single clamp on the black oil lines to make sure that they are not leaking. If they are leaking, tighten up your clamps again. So this was my part 3 video of the final installation of the bike. My last and final video will be the bike completed, gas tank, seat, the bike filled up with oil, and running it down the street a couple times, and I will let you guys know where I stand with the bike itself. I really do appreciate everybody watching the video. When you have an opportunity, go out to www.SuttonCycleWorks.com. Check out the oil cooler line. I'm positive you'll be very impressed with the overall quality. I'm looking forward to running the bike and seeing what type of temperature drop that I get. Thanks again for watching, and I appreciate it.